Hi everyone. So in my last video, I talked about seeing posts on Facebook of people, discussing their tolerances. And when the tolerance is high, they get kind of a hard time for it. So as I mentioned in the previous video, I made a post on one of the PKU support groups on Facebook saying that my tolerance had gone down from 25 to 20 grams and that I was struggling and needing support. And I'm very happy to say that I got a lot of really, really helpful and supportive and thoughtful comments. I'm very happy. Um, Only a couple did the people say something along the lines of, "Oh, you're so lucky." That wasn't as much. And I think the distinction is that I said that I was struggling, that I made it very clear that I was having a hard time in the post. I mean, I mentioned the tolerance. I mentioned that it was a decrease, and I said that I was struggling and that I was having a hard time and could use support. So I think with all that prompted, it was enough for people to realize that I needed positivity rather than like being told, "Oh, you're so lucky." But yeah, that's the kind of stuff I want to see. I want to see people say, "Hey, I'm here for you. Try this." Like people were giving me suggestions of like foods to try and saying like, "Oh, try to increase your formula," or maybe just saying something like, "I'm sorry you're going through this. I know how hard it is." It was super nice. Like, thank you guys. That's what I was looking for. My dog is gonna join me. um, but yeah, that's all like I was looking for. I want us to do that all the time, not just when someone says they're struggling. Like, we can't just assume that someone isn't having a hard time because they're not telling you. I myself am pretty upfront if I'm struggling with something or if I'm having a bad day. I'm very emotionally vulnerable, like I'm raw. I'll tell you how I feel, usually, but even not all the time myself. And a lot of people really keep those emotions to themselves. A lot of people don't like to admit when they're struggling. So just take that as a lesson, and that you don't know how someone is really feeling. You don't know what they're really going through. Um, they might be in a really dark place. So it's best to assume that, you should be gentle with them. Just be gentle with people in general. Um, yeah, but anyway, I'm really happy to say I got nothing but positive, overall, nothing but extremely supportive comments on my fake Facebook post. But yeah, like I said in the previous video, um, we all need to just be really supportive of each other and be kind and be considerate and recognize that every single one of us struggles. It's not exclusive to a certain tolerance. It's not like if you can eat a certain amount of food, you magically don't have PKU. Like, PKU will affect you regardless of your tolerance and regardless of what you do and do not eat. It affects you, as I said before, emotionally, financially, physically, mentally. Like it's going to affect you. And I know myself, regardless of the tolerances that I've had, it's affected me every day of my life. So let's just recognize that we're all in this together. We all need to be strong and supportive and get through this together because it is hard. It's really hard to have PKU every day. I mean, I don't know how each and every one of you has struggled, but I know the kinds of things that I've experienced in my life, and I know that they're difficult. And they don't just stay to a single category. It's not like, you know, it's not all insignificant. Like, a lot of it is a really big deal. Having to have your mental health compromised because of your PKU, or social exclusion, or financial strain, or pregnancy. Like, having PKU and being pregnant, that's scary. Like, we deal with some really scary things. Getting coverage for formula, the highs and lows of starting a new treatment. These are all really, really challenging things. So regardless of the kind of story you have with your PKU, respect that regardless of someone else's story, they've struggled. No matter what you've gone through, other people will have similar experiences, but they're also going to have different experiences than you. And that doesn't make them any more or less important than yours. it doesn't make them less important, and it doesn't make them more important, in that it goes both ways. Like, if someone has a higher tolerance than you, like, that doesn't mean that their struggle wasn't as significant as yours. And like, I know myself, I've responded to Kuvan, and I'm very, very, very lucky to have. But I have a feeling, like, I remember when I would look at posts on Instagram and things like that, when I first started Kuvan and it started, working really well for me, I would feel really bad when people would tell me, like, no, I'm not responsive, and no, my tolerance is really, really low. And I would feel really bad, like, as I should. Like, it stinks. They have it harder than me, but that doesn't mean that my struggle is less important, and it doesn't mean that I don't have the right to have a bad day. Like, even if someone is struggling more than you or in a different way than you, that doesn't mean you're not allowed to still struggle and have a hard time. Like, don't be like, oh, I can't be upset because this person is more upset. It's just like the argument, like, when your parents, I guess with PKU it's a little different, but when your parents tell you that, like, classic, you need to finish your food because there are starving children in Africa, like, that doesn't, it doesn't really affect you. Like, knowing that someone else is struggling more than you doesn't make your struggle any less real. And I guess that's not the best analogy, but you know what I mean? Like, just because someone else is having a worse day doesn't mean you're not having a hard day, and doesn't mean you don't have the right to feel that way. It doesn't mean you don't have the right to feel sad or feel frustrated or feel like you're, maybe you feel like you're kind of down on your luck and you feel like what you've been dealt is unfair. And it's okay to feel that way. Like, do I think that we should feel that way all the time? No, I think that there are a lot of bright sides to look on and a lot of positives in life with PKU. But like, you can still throw yourself a pity party every once in a while. And it's okay to feel bad as long as you recognize that your struggles are not more important or less important than other people's. And I think that's pretty much the whole point of this little experiment I did, is that we need to recognize that we all have different experiences, we all have different struggles and different levels of challenges, but that doesn't mean that any one of them is invalid or not important. Like, everything we go through matters. Every struggle, every hard time. Like, this can get really, really hard. I've hit some very serious lows with PKU, and they matter. Like, it matters. Whatever you're going through, whatever struggle, you're allowed to feel bad. You're allowed to maybe be a little bit envious of someone else, but just recognize that, just because you think they have a better life than you doesn't mean they do. And like, you don't have the right to say, like, oh, your life is easy because mine's harder. Like, you don't get to say that. You don't get to make that decision for someone else, that your life is harder than theirs, so they're not allowed to complain. No, you don't get to do that. Everyone struggles in different ways, and maybe someone doesn't struggle with their diet, but maybe they're struggling in another aspect of their life. But anyway, I'm happy again to report that I got lots and lots of positivity and support on my fake Facebook post. I felt really weird about making a fake Facebook post, honestly. I hated, like, being deceitful, honestly, because I don't like to do that. I don't like to give a false representation of myself in any way, but I think it was worth it to do that little experiment and see that this community can be really, really supportive when they realize it's necessary. And that was kind of the point, to point out that it's always necessary, not just when it's pointed out that it's necessary. Like I said, I need support. It's always necessary to be kind, to be gentle, and be considerate of other people. So I hope that this experiment was interesting for you. I hope that you maybe learned something. I don't know. I found it really interesting. I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of support I got. Like, I honestly was expecting more people to say, like, oh, you're so lucky, and just kind of dismiss it, because that's what I've seen on other posts. So I was very happy to see how supportive people are. And I can't say I'm super, super surprised. I'm not cynical about this community. These people are amazing. Like, every person with PKU that I've talked to, almost every single one of them, at least, almost, has been strong and fiercely caring. Like, we are some strong people, honestly. It's very impressive, the people that I've met, the kinds of things that they deal with and the kinds of things that they fight for. Like, it's amazing what you can handle when it's thrown onto your plate. So, anyway, take care, keep being kind, wonderful, supportive humans. Yeah, thanks for tuning in.